What's up, everyone? Daniel Armstrong coming at you again with another video from the A-Tech Racing Performance Shop. In today's video, I got a cool bike from a cool dude. This is a 2023 Vulcan 650. This bike is just under 11,000 miles. So let's go ahead and get into this thing, start taking it apart. If you're new to the channel, please like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications, and leave me a comment. Let me know what kind of bike you got, let me know what you're working on, and let me know how I can help. All right, everyone, you guys get into the video. I'm gonna get in this bike. Today's job is fork seals. To start, we're gonna need a couple stands, preferably something like this. Now that we got the bike set up, front and rear, we can go ahead and start disassembling the front end. I'm gonna start with this front caliper. After removing the 12mm bolts, if they hit the stand, it's honestly okay. Just pull the caliper off and we'll be able to get those bolts out later. Also, you don't want to let the caliper hang. You want to support it with some type of a bungee. Right now I have this one wrapped around the handlebar and connected back to the tie down. Moving forward to remove the front wheel, you're going to want to loosen this pinch bolt right here, and then you're going to want to take a 14mm Allen or hex socket and crack the axle loose. Once you got the axle out, you can put that aside, and you should be able to take the wheel out and put that aside as well. Remove the front fender, and this is what you're going to be left with. We're going to go ahead and start removing these forks. We're going to start by loosening these lower triple tree bolts along with this blinker assembly bolt. First, we want to loosen this cap. We're going to leave this tight, get this loose, and then we can start loosening everything else. To loosen these fork caps, I'm going to be using a 22mm box end wrench, and I'm just going to loosen these, and this is just going to help when I disassemble these later. Have the bike to actually hold everything in place right now. Once I got both sides loosened up, I'm going to go ahead and start loosening up the rest of the triple trees. Be careful when you're doing this because these forks will slide out and hit the ground. So make sure you at least have a hand on them whenever you're loosening the final bolt. Once you got those removed, this is what you're going to be left with. Now, time to start disassembling these forks. This is what the customer supplied to us for the job. First thing you're going to want to do is get this fork protector taken off. I'm going to be using a rubber mount to do this. Once I got that removed, I'm just going to put it aside. Then we're going to move to the bottom of the fork. What we want to do is remove the bolt from the bottom of the dampening rod. To achieve this, I'm going to be using an extended 8mm hex or Allen socket. But before I can do that, I got to remove this pinch bolt. It's blocking our access. Just put it aside once you get that out. Once you have that removed, we can move to the top of the fork and remove this cap. I'm going to be using a 22mm socket for this. Once you have that removed, you can start removing the internals. Just put them aside in the order they come out. Next, go ahead and start dumping out your oil. Be careful because you're still going to have your spring and possibly a washer inside there that may want to fall out. Once you got everything out, like I said, line everything up so you know how it goes back into the fork. Your dampening rod should be able to come out at this point too. After all that, it's time to start removing these seals. I'm going to be using a small flathead screwdriver for this. Just going to put it in between the dust seal and the fork and softly twist it open. Once I got the dust seal separated, I'm going to go ahead and remove it, and then I'm going to go ahead and remove this retaining ring next. Once I got that popped out, go ahead and remove it, put it with your dust seal, and then it's time to separate the fork. What you're going to want to do is hold both ends of the fork firmly, and then just pull it apart to separate it. Be mindful if any internals fall out. For this guy, this one's going to go into the bottom of the stanchion. And next, you can remove all the parts off of the stanchion. Time to start cleaning. Go ahead and get a can of brake cleaner, and we're going to start soaking this thing. Don't be afraid to use the entire can. You mainly just want to get all of the old residual oil out of the fork. And honestly, you should be wearing some safeties. Don't do what I'm doing. After that, try and do your best to dry everything out. I like to just shove a rag in there and twist it around. This is what we're working with afterwards. Moving on to the fork stanchion. We're going to remove this outer bushing, and then what I like to do is use a large flathead screwdriver to pry open the lower bushing to remove it. Next, it's time to clean. Get your contact cleaner and soak this thing just like you did the lower fork. Make sure to have plenty of shop rags on hand during this job. For the inside of the stanchion, I'm going to use this brush. Once I got it put inside, I'm going to fill it with brake cleaner and start scrubbing or pushing this thing through. I'm going to do this a couple times just to make sure I got everything cleaned. Again, I should be wearing some safety glasses. Don't do what I'm doing. Once I'm done with that, I can start drying everything off and we can start prepping for assembly. We're going to start by getting the lower bushing put on. I like to use a tiny little bit of oil film on everything going forward. You just slide this over and snap it on. Next, we have the outer bushing. Same thing, soak with oil, just slide it on. Next, we have our dampening rod. Get this guy all cleaned up, and using the same oil that we're putting inside the fork, you just want to give it a little coating. We're going to slide this down to the stanchion, make sure it comes all the way through, and you have access to the bottom of the dampening rod. We're going to grab that plastic clip from earlier, make sure it's clean. We're going to install it onto the bottom of the dampening rod. I'm going to put that thin film of oil on everything and carefully install this into the bottom of the fork tube. Next, we're going to grab the bolt from the bottom of the dampening rod that we removed earlier, and we're going to replace the crush washer on it and get it all cleaned up. Before I get this put back into the fork, I like to use a little dab of red Loctite. Just a tiny little bit, it goes a long way. Now you can go ahead and install the bolts into the bottom of the dampening rod. Now, it's time to install the seals. I'm going to be using a 41mm fork seal driver for this. Before I do the seals, what I'm going to do is clean off this flat washer plate. I'm going to install that, and then I'm going to use the fork seal driver to drive that in. What this is going to do is actually seat the outer bushing into the fork. Just want to check to make sure it's fully seated. Now we can grab our seals. I'm going to start with the oils. Again, going to put that nice little thin coating of oil on it. And then I'm going to grab a Motion Pro fork seal bullet. This is a little tool that's just going to help me not to cut the fork seal when I install it. When I go to install it, I just want to make sure that it's oriented correctly before I put it onto the stanchion. Once I got it on, I'm going to clean everything, and then I'm going to use that fork seal driver to seat everything into place. Go ahead and check to make sure that it's seated, and you have a groove available for your snap ring. The kit came with some extra snap rings, but I noticed that they were a little bit smaller than the OEM one, so I'm just going to go back with the OEM one. It honestly probably would have worked just fine, but at least we got a guarantee with the OEM. To install it, I'm just going to use that same flathead screwdriver from earlier and get it to snap into place. Once you hear it snap in, go ahead and check it just to verify that all of it is inside of the groove. Once you know it is, go ahead and grab your dust seal, do that tiny little film of oil just on the inside and the lip that's going to be installing, and you can install it onto the fork stanchion. This one isn't as crucial about using the bullet. Just as before, you want to make sure you clean everything up. Then we're going to use our fork seal driver to get the dust seal installed. Next, we can start doing our internals. We're going to grab our fork spring along with that little washer. Then we're going to do our preload spacer, and then we're going to get our cap installed. We're going to crank this down, but we're not going to torque it. I want to go to the bottom of the fork and do our final torque on the bolt that we installed into the dampening rod. Once we've done that, we can go ahead and remove the top cap again. We're going to remove the internals one more time, and it's time to start filling it all up with oil. Here are the specs I pulled out of the manual. We're going to go ahead and fill up our fork tubes with about 455 milliliters of oil. To do this, I'm going to be using a ratio right. I'm just going to fill it up to the 455 mark. Once I have it filled up to my mark, I'm going to go ahead and pour this into the fork tube. Now this next part is very crucial. You want to take your time in bleeding the fork. So what we're going to do is we're just going to slowly pump this thing up and down, and we're going to just try to get all the air out of the bottom and try and get it to where it's bled out and it's just oil. Again, take your time, keep everything clean. You can look on the inside to see where the bubbles are coming up, and this does take time. Sometimes it could take 30 minutes, even over an hour. Once you're confident that you got all the air out of the fork, it's time to set the oil level. Grabbing this tool from Motion Pro, I have it set to 115 millimeters from the top, and I'm just going to suck all the oil out until we have air. I'll plunge it up and down a couple times, but I just want to make sure I got the fork oil level set correctly. Next, grab your fork spring, carefully install that so you don't splash any oil out. Grab your washer, go ahead and put in your preload spacer. And before we install our fork cap, let's go ahead and replace this O-ring. We got some new ones in that kit, so might as well. Again, film of oil. Once we got that installed onto our cap, we can go ahead and install our cap onto the fork for the final time. Go ahead and get that guy torqued up. Go ahead and clean it up. Now let's install our fork protector. Using that same rubber mallet as earlier, just going to softly tap it on until it seats. At that point, you have now completed your fork. Go ahead and do the same thing to the other one, and then we can go and get these installed back onto the bike. As for the process, it's pretty much the same exact thing as you did, just in reverse. We'll get our forks installed. We'll set the fork level in the top of the tree. We'll go ahead and get these all tightened down as far as the triple tree bolts go. We'll install our front fender. We can go ahead and set the final torque for these bolts right now. To set the final torque on these triple tree bolts, I grabbed this out of the manual. It's actually very important that we set these to the proper spec. Doesn't look like it's going to be much. We're looking at about 15 foot-pounds. So I'm going to grab my torque wrench, get that set up, and get these all torqued. Now that I got those lowers torqued, I want to go ahead and come up to the caps and get these torqued first before I tighten the top triple tree bolt. We're just going to snug these. Manual calls for 16 foot-pounds for these guys. After that, we can go ahead and tighten up the top triple trees. Don't forget to set final torque on your blanker assemblies. And now we can grab our front wheel and start installing that. But before I do that, I'm going to grab the axle, I'm going to clean it off and put some fresh grease on it. Once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and get it installed and get it torqued. And don't forget to set the torque on the pinch bolt as well. Next, we can grab our caliper and get that installed. I like to use that red Loctite again. Set the final torque. And then pump up the front brake before we do anything else. Want to make sure it's working. Want to make sure the wheel is spinning smoothly as well. And just like that, fork seal is replaced. Once you take the bike off the stand, you can go ahead and install this plug at the bottom of the triple tree. Only thing left to do now is go for a test ride. Thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time, stay safe out there.